What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Back Your Play with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. Check us out on the YouTube channel at Rich Q on Q. And of course, that's IG and Twitter. Our NFL Insider, the great Lloyd Vance. Follow him on Twitter at Lloyd Vance. Does a great job with the NFL, college football, as we know, PFWA award winner, ESPN NFL Network contributor as well, and the Black College Football Hall of Fame Selection Committee. And man, I'll tell you, we got a ton to dive into. Always good to catch up with you, my friend. This week, we're going to take a in-depth look at the NFC South, which, let's be honest, you've got a carousel when it comes to the quarterback position. You've got some really bad teams. It might be a one-team race. Who knows? But as we kind of gloss and look over this division, let's kind of get your overall thoughts going into the season with these teams respectively, and then we'll break down each team starting with Tampa Bay.
Yeah, Q, always glad to be back with you. It's crazy because I was studying, looking at this division. You had the division winner they were 8-9 with Tampa Bay Bucks, and then all the three other teams were 7-10 behind them. So very tight division, all pretty bad teams, and the biggest question mark, obviously, out there is you have Tom Brady is no longer with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and how does that shake up this division? It's going to be interesting to see how they're able to rebound in Tampa Bay and these other places. You have some new quarterbacks as well. So, a lot of movement in terms of quarterbacks, but you wonder in terms of divisionally, where this division stands. And I'd have to say it's pretty far down there.
Yeah, you look at Tampa Bay. You alluded to it. 8-9, no Tom Brady. So what do? They give Baker Mayfield, you get him on a one-year deal. You bring over a different offensive coordinator. Canales was from Seattle. We saw the work that he did with Geno Smith. But that offense was a run-first heavy, predicated on the ground game. Now, they're going to have to do this in Tampa Bay, right? So I don't know if you can do that run-based attack. And then conversely, we'll get to the defense, but I pulled it up on my notes. Tampa Bay, when you talk about getting to the quarterback, they might have edge rushers that do it. But I'm sorry, they might have linebackers that do it, but they don't really have a ton of edge rushers that can get to the quarterback, right? A lot of them are linebackers that are be making plays. And I just think with the quarterback carousel, I look at this team. You got a couple other no-name guys. You got Mayfield and Trask kind of battling it out. I don't trust the quarterback position at all. I think Baker Mayfield is a kind of a gatekeeper, a journeyman quarterback at this point that can win you some games. But I believe they're in store for a very long season.
Yeah, Q, and you're talking about a team. Defense was always their calling card, and let's face it, Todd Bowles was the defensive coach, and he's their head coach. And this defense, they were 13th out of 32 teams in terms of points against. They allowed 21 points per game. And then in terms of points for, they were only scoring, they were 25th in the league, only 18 points per game. So, the games they did win were defensive battles. But you wonder, as you were saying, what are they going to do in terms of the quarterback position with Baker Mayfield and the rest of the guys there? Is there enough left in the cupboard? You just wonder, can Baker now, I think this is his fourth team that he's on, is he going to be the guy that can fix this situation? They did go in terms of the draft and get Kalijah Cansey coming from the University of Pittsburgh, a defensive tackle. Some people are comparing him to Aaron Donald. I'm not ready to do that just yet. He's a good young defensive tackle. We'll see how he'll fit into that scheme. And they also tried in the second round, they got Cody Mauk coming out of North Dakota State to try to help an offensive line that's kind of been in flux ever since Tom Brady kind of finished out his career, and some of those guys that were with him kind of left as well. So, a team that has a lot of work to do, but you wonder where they're going to stand, and are they going to be in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes going into next season?
So do you think they can win 6, 7, 8 games as presently constructed? I mean, I think their defense is going to give up a lot of points. I don't really see them mustering any type of offense or moving the football as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be a defensive team where they get these timely turnovers. from Winfield and the rest of the guys on that defense. White seems to be a little upset the linebacker position in terms of his pay. Wonder if he's going to come back. And they do have some good, solid players on the defense, but they're going to have to get to turnovers because offensively, yes, you have Mike Evans and some other guys there, but the quarterback position is just such a big question mark.
Yeah, I mean, that's the NFL, is it not? I mean, we're seeing it in this division alone, right? You got a young kid in Carolina. We don't know what we're going to see in Atlanta. I mean, let's be honest. And then you've got a new quarterback in New Orleans. I'm sorry.
Derek Carr is now in Derek Carr. So he's the veteran quarterback there, and then you got a bunch of young, unproven guys.
Yeah, it totally escaped my mind for a moment. I'm thinking to myself, wait a second. Yeah, and he signed that big contract, Carr. We'll get into them in a moment. Carolina, 7-10. Again, same type of scenario. They need an edge rusher. They got no sacks from the linebacker position. You've got, if you look at it, Burns was their playmaker on the defensive end of the ball with 12.5 sacks, 35 as a team collectively. But again, it goes to the quarterback position, and they don't have any depth too. So you've got Young, you're giving him the keys to the castle, so to speak, right off the bat. This is basically feast or famine time, right? Because I think Walker signed with the Bears. They had another backup that signed. So it's Bryce Young's team when you think about it. So they're going to sink or swim. And listen, I think they take a step back because typically rookies struggle. We know this. There are rare occasions, few exceptions. I don't see them winning 7 games. I can see them closer to 3-4. But you want to see what you have in this kid.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, Q, because you got Frank Reich coming in there, and he was jettisoned from the Colts, didn't get the job done, but he quickly turned right around. He gets a job with the Panthers, and their ownership group wants to have a winner. It's been some time there in Carolina since Cam Newton kind of was let go, and this team, as you're alluding to, was pretty bad. They allowed 22 points per game on defense, which is 19th in the NFL, and they've only scored about 20 points per game. Wow. Which is 20th in the league. So they got to find ways to put some points on the board and help the team out in terms of just getting some offensive playmakers. So Bryce Young is a very good start. A young guy coming out of Alabama. Obviously, he's one of those 5-star guys, and he lived up to all the hype in college, and he won Heisman Trophy, et cetera. But he may be in for some bumps and bruises because much like Justin Fields was last year with the Bears, that this offensive line for Carolina is kind of beat up, and you wonder, are they going to be able to take care of him? And then defensively, as you said, they have Brian Bankster, their great defensive end. But what else is there defensively? In terms of the draft, they got Bryce Young, and I talked about. They went with Jonathan Mingo in the 2nd round out of Ole Miss. We'll see what kind of receiver is. The receiver group is kind of deep this year. And then they went with DJ Johnson, linebacker out of Oregon. So, trying to fix things in a variety of places, but you got to wonder, are there enough fingers to plug in all the holes of this dam?
And that's going to be the question going into the season. I looked at their point differential. That whole division was horrible. I mean, Tampa Bay was minus 45. You're looking at plus 8,000, plus 7,000, plus 700. I'm adding a zero there, Bucks fans. Plus 700. I would take a flyer if it was plus 7,000. Plus 700 to win a division. Carolina comes in shorter at plus 330, plus 400. So it kind of tells you where they believe the odds makers, where Tampa and Carolina are going to be. By the way, Tampa last year minus 45 in a point differential as well. So I just don't see a lot of positives from those teams going into the season. But as you mentioned, young franchise quarterback, they want to see what they have in this kid. All right. New Orleans, 7-10 last year. Obviously, you make the big move for Carr, for Derek Carr. 142 games with the Raiders, 35,000 yards, 217 touchdowns, but not the best winning record, right? 63-79. Played 15 last year, got benched. He had one playoff game with the Raiders in his whole tenure, and we know the 1 year he was hurt. Okay, fine. They lost to Cincinnati in 2021. 4 years, $150 million. So, again, loaded question, softball question, but the pressure now on Carr to not only have this team playing winning football, yes, but also win a division that's extremely winnable.
It is, Q, and they had some games that they could have won last year, and they just kind of at the end of the in the fourth quarter they just could not get it done. So this is a quality young team, and they do have some playmakers in terms of offensive side of the football. But you wonder about Alvin Kamara. He may get suspended. He has some off the field stuff that he's working through, and he may miss a couple games. And Derek Carr, as you said, is a big piece for them coming out. So, they went heavy at defense in the draft. The pick number 29 in the first round, they brought Brian Breeze in from defensive tackle from Clemson. And then in the second round, they grabbed Isaiah Foskey, a defensive end from Notre Dame. So, they wanted to fix that defense that allowed a lot of big plays, and they need to get to the quarterback. So it's going to be interesting. They do have a very big offensive line led by McCoy and some other guys that can take care of Derek Carr in terms of the pocket and running the football behind him. They also have Taysom Hill, who's there. They said Taysom Hill's he's back to being a utility guy. He's going to be mostly a tight end, and then he'll move around the formation as well. So, Pete Carmichael, their offensive coordinator, is looking for a variety of ways to, spruce up this offense. I think maybe Michael Thomas is maybe ready to finally play some games. He only was limited to about 3 games last year, and they have some other playmakers as well.
Hill accounted for 9 touchdowns, 7 rushing last year. You mentioned the quarterback in Carr, right? So I pulled up the numbers. Dalton and Winston combined 22 touchdowns, 14 picks. I think Carr was 24 and 14 last year. They believe that he has more juice left in the tank, so to speak. He didn't like how it ended with the Raiders. He said the breaking point is when they made his wife cry. He didn't get a chance to play in that late home game. I understand all that. But again, 63 and 79, 1 playoff game, a loss to Cincinnati in 2021. Look, is he an upgrade over Dalton? Yeah. Is he an upgrade over Winston? I would say yes. But 4 years, $150 million. You can't go 9-8 and throw 22 touchdowns and 16 picks. I mean, the expectation for New Orleans right now, because of this money that they're handing over to him, that they signed him to the contract, and I guess we're paying you for what you've done and what we believe you can do going forward in this division. He's got to have one of those 35 touchdowns, 8 picks type of performance during the season. They got to win 10, 11 games and win a division and make the playoffs, because other than that, who's to say if he struggles, they don't turn around and draft a young quarterback?
Yeah, Q, this is an interesting team because, Dennis Allen, a veteran guy, inherited basically his whole team from Sean Payton as he stepped away in his pre-retirement. I think he's going to come back eventually, but that's another story. But Dennis Allen, he was kind of handed this team as their former defensive coordinator. And he's got a lot of work to do. Yes, Derek Carr's there, and he has some pieces like receiver Chris Olave, who had a very good rookie season.
Yep.
But, you wonder, is there enough? But this is a very winnable division. And right now, I may have to put New Orleans ahead of some of these other teams because they all kind of seem to be in rebuilding mode. And, Derek Carr, I know you pointed out some of the struggles there with the Las Vegas, but I think – why not have this veteran guy come in there and live up to that big price tag? So it's going to be fun to see if this team can redeem themselves.
Breaking down the NFC South on a Tuesday edition of Back Your Play with Q. Rich Quinones here. Appreciate everyone keeping us locked in. Lloyd Vance joining us as well, our NFL Insider at Lloyd Vance. As we mentioned, NFC South, Tampa, Carolina, New Orleans, Atlanta, kind of the changing of the guard, quarterback carousel, without a doubt in that division. Atlanta, you're looking at plus 220 to 240. Check that. The Saints plus 135. Carolina has a shorter odds, which is kind of interesting at plus 330. Tampa, the longest at plus 700. And then you have Atlanta sitting there at plus 220, plus 240. So that kind of tells you that obviously the Saints, because of the acquisition of Carr, should be the team to kind of beat in the NFC South. Atlanta, just like the other 2 teams we mentioned, Carolina and New Orleans, 7-10 last year. Look, I mean, again, it boils down to the quarterback play. That's a franchise that since Matt Ryan, I still think they thought maybe they had something with Marcus Mariota. And we realized pretty fast that his best days were behind him. All right, fine. So now, who are you going to give the ball to? Who are you going to hand it to under center? Well, it's going to be the kid, Ritter. And listen, I don't know. The kid's 23 years old. He played at Cincinnati. You can't gauge him off of a couple games. All I know is from what I saw, he's a young quarterback that has, in college, I guess his strength was decision-making, but just a short sample size in the pros, it seems as though he's one of these quarterbacks that'll frustrate the hell out of you, Lloyd, because he makes the easy play seem extremely difficult. And you can't get away with that being a young quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, Desmond Ridder, he had that great season at Cincinnati where they were undefeated for a lot of it in the national championship picture. But as you said, Q, he started 4 games. He goes 2-2 in those games. He only completed 63.5% of his passes, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. But, you start wondering when you really watch the game tape, is he going to make the right decision at the right time? He got a little frazzled in the pocket. Sometimes he was too quick to run. And there are some weapons there. So, of course, everybody's going to talk about the draft, what the Falcons did. They get, obviously, Bijan Robinson coming over at pick number 8, coming out of Texas, the running back that a lot of people wanted. Great pass catcher. A lot of people talking about in terms of fantasy football and everything else. That this kid is, they're saying maybe the next Marshall Faulk. We're going to wait and see on that one. He has very good hands, can get out of the backfield. And there are some pieces there, obviously, as well, with Pitts at the tight end position. And they also have the young receiver from last year, the first round pick as well. So, a lot of pieces there. But Desmond Ridder, I haven't seen enough sample size from him. Arthur Smith is the quarterback whisperer coming over from the Titans. What a great job he did with Tannehill and his career reviving it. But, I just don't know if Ritter's a guy. And I think going into after this season, they're probably going to look again for a quarterback. So, this team, they'll be in the mix. Another team that was right there as well. You were talking about in terms of, they were tied with everybody else at 7-10 in second place. So maybe they can win a couple games. They also got in the second round Matthew Bergeron, offensive tackle from Syracuse. That offensive line needed some help as well because their quarterback was running a lot of times for his life. So interesting team here, but I think Arthur Smith has his work cut out for him.
You mentioned a running back that probably people never even heard of who goes over 1,000 yards. And then the kid Drake London, the 21-year-old out of USC, had a really nice season. So I get what they're trying to do. Young running back, young wide receiver, build the offensive line, get a quarterback in position. But, to me, can you imagine now with that running back and that wide receiver, some weapons, and you stick a guy like, say, Carr back there for 2 to 3 years? Maybe that's a different situation, a different animal. Listen, I think Tampa, Carolina, Atlanta, for all the reasons that we mentioned and illustrated and highlighted, they're going to struggle. They'll win a couple games here and there. New Orleans, to me, is going to be the team with the bullseye on their back going in to the season. It should be the odds-on favorite because of the move for the quarterback. Now, am I going to sit here and say I have to put the Saints with, say, San Francisco, Dallas, Minnesota, the 49ers in the NFC? No, because I still think it's going to be a 2 or 3 team kind of race in the NFC, in the National Football Conference. But again, listen, man, I'll tell you, if it broke crazy for Tampa at plus 700, plus 800, not bad, but the Saints plus 135, you're not going to get a ton of value for them. But again, they are certainly the odds-on favorite. Listen, I know Dalvin Cook is still out there. Fournette also, he's a free agent. I saw on Twitter, he posted his car basically caught on fire. Thank God he's okay. But Fournette was with Tampa Bay. Cook was with Minnesota. These are running backs that can help out young quarterbacks, right? Or a team that's on the verge maybe of taking that next step. We've kind of talked about this over the last several weeks. Where do you see those 2 quarterbacks potentially landing, the best fits?
Yeah, running back position is very interesting, Q, because you just had Melvin Gordon go on national TV, and he talked about it's the worst position to play in the National Football League. He can't get a job. He's at 30, and you're seeing this log jam, all these running backs out there, and in particular Dalvin Cook, who you talked about, and Ezekiel Elliott's also out there as well. And it's a demanding position, and the owners do not want to pay this position anymore. And we talked about earlier about Todd Gurley, how that was the tipping point. He got that huge contract and just did not live up to it, and nobody kind of wants to pay these running backs. So it's going to be still interesting to see where Dalvin Cook it ends up, the Denver Broncos are obvious choice. They're a team, yes, they have Javonte Williams, but he's coming off an injury, and that could be an opening spot for him. Dallas as well. They need a backup coming in there, and I think he's just going to take his time. I think you're going to see a lot of these running backs they don't want to go to training camp, and they're going to sit on the sidelines, wait and see who's injured, and see if they can get that non-value contract, because as you're saying, Q, right now, they want these running backs to sign for minimal deals. So, Dalvin Cook will be the first domino to fall, and then maybe some of these other running backs fall into place.
Yeah, and you also wait too, once training camp rolls around, you never know, God forbid a back goes down with an injury, and all of a sudden, boom, it opens up the door for some of these guys who I think Cook still has a lot of gas left in the tank, and there are certain teams we've kind of talked about that he would be a good fit. So that's the look at the National Football Conference. Went through the East, the North, the NFC South, the NFC West. Next week, we'll start with the AFC. Then we'll start to look at the futures market as well. We'll do some player props. Lloyd Vance, as always, kind enough to join us on a Tuesday edition of BYP with Q from our good friends over at Play It Again Sports, 1450 Clemensbridge Road in Deptford, New Jersey. Check them out online. Open 7 days a week, in-store shopping, used equipment, sports gear, and more. So if you're thinking about getting a Cook Vikings jersey, who knows? You might want to hold off. Definitely go to Play It Again Sports, but they might have a new jersey of his new team coming up. So we'll kind of see how that plays out. All right, training camp right around the corner. Dog days of summer. We're pushing through it. We get to the AFC next week. AFC East. How about that? AFC East. We'll get into little Rodgers. By the way, I heard Hard Knocks right now. It looks like the Jets might be that fit.
Yeah, Q, I'm hearing, there were certain teams that were eligible. There's about 4 teams that were eligible, and in Washington, and they were willing, I heard, to do it, but the Jets, obviously the marquee team out there with Aaron Rodgers and all the other pieces that are there, and they want the cameras there, and the league does. The team, I'm hearing, is giving some pushback, but if they want to have them as a selected team, which I think they're going to, the cameras will be there, because it's such a show that everybody really looks forward to every season. And why not bring the drama with the terms of Rodgers? Now, some people may say there's a jinx. A team that is on that show typically does not do as well, but the Jets in the past, the Rex Ryan season, they went pretty far in the playoffs after being on that show. So we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah, maybe it also has something to do with the Jets being just kind of a loser franchise, right? I don't think that has anything to do with it. We waited 3 months for Aaron Rodgers to kind of peek his head up like a whack-a-mole. So you know what? To your point, it would be some good video and good content to see what he does up there. Give Lloyd a follow on Twitter, social media as well. Always appreciate you jumping on board this edition of BYP. We'll get it up on the YouTube channel, on Buzzsprout as well, Spotify, Apple. Next week, the AFC. We'll start with the AFC East. Always appreciate a couple moments, pal.
All right, look forward to it. Thanks for having me on.